What's going on, Founder University? We got a great episode for you today, and specifically it's for you if you operate in the B2C space or you wake up like me every single day thinking about growth and how you're going to get your business bigger and bigger. We have Simon Mills on the pod. He is the founder of George Street Growth. They are a growth consulting firm that work for some of the biggest brands in the B2C space, and personally he's driven over $30 million in revenue for some of these brands. So he is a master of growth, and we cover a ton of different topics from top line growth in terms of generating more leads and thinking about your lead channels, but also internal growth about how to improve your process and really make sure that you're running a fine-tuned machine. But for me personally, we go back and forth sharing different growth strategies that we've been a part of within our companies, and he gave some incredible ideas about running lead magnets, about running webinars, and really just generating top of the funnel from there. So I know you're going to enjoy the episode. Hopefully you can take some of these tactics and put it in your business for yourself. And enjoy. We'll speak soon. Simon, good to see you. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited to chat and catch up, but one thing in particular I'm really excited to speak about, and specifically why I wanted to have you on the podcast, is because of your niche. You're in the growth world, but specifically you're in the B2C online SaaS growth space, which is not my world. I'm in the B2B world. I come from B2B SaaS. I operate a B2B service business now. And I know what's going on in my world, and I've known practices and growth strategies that I've used in the past. I don't know best practices in the B2C world and what works there and different strategies there. And I think there's a huge opportunity for people to sort of look outside of their worlds. And as a growth consultant, fractional, you're not just with one business, you're with a handful of businesses at a time. So you actually have your finger on the pulse on a lot of different industries and a lot of different companies. So I'm excited to speak to you, but hopefully you're able to drop nuggets of information that I can pull from the B2C world and use in the B2B world. So
I'll do my best.
That's my pump up for myself of why I'm excited to speak to you.
Cool. No, I will do my very best.
There you go. Well, we'll jump into it. And just for anyone listening, so Simon is based in Toronto. He's worked with companies like Top Hat and Open Care and Felix and all these big brands to help them on the growth side to generate top line. And I guess before we sort of jump into it, which is something I was thinking about before we came on, is I would love to just get your take on like, what do you define as growth? Like when I say you're a growth consultant or you're a growth marketer, like give me your textbook definition of that.
Yeah, this is a great question. And it's something that it doesn't bother me, but I think the term growth has really sort of been used to encompass everything from like content to paid acquisition to product growth to, retention to life cycle to everything. The way that I think about growth is it's not just marketing, it's not just acquisition. It really is when you think about growth, the goal is to grow the business, right? So how do you do that? There's a ton of different levers, and a growth person, I guess we'll call it like a growth specialist, a growth marketer, whatever you want to call it. They look at the whole business with the goal of growing it, right? So I'll give you a great example. In fintech, I've done a lot of work in fintech. As a classic example. So if you bring someone on, or if someone comes in who maybe they're a growth person, but they're just focused on like acquisition, whether it's like paid acquisition or content or organic, how they're going to grow the business is going to be bring in more people, right? Either spend more money or reduce the cost or change up the channel mix, right, at the top of the funnel. But the goal is just to bring in more people. But with fintech, what's interesting is there's a ton of levers outside of that, right? One of the ones that we saw at multiple companies I've worked at in fintech is something in the KYC process, right? So it's like you go through KYC if you're doing SMB, KYB. And as part of that,
Let's just pause there. What's KYC and what's KYB?
Sorry. Like know your customer, know your business. So it's basically the questions that you ask, like what's your social insurance number? How many shareholders are there? Like all those sort of like details, right? Of like who you are and what your business is. And as part of that process, there's a review, right? And one of the biggest levers that you have actually is literally to grow the business, to increase your conversion rate and therefore decrease your CAC, increase your volume. One of the biggest levers you have is number one is that auto approve percentage. So the number of people who don't actually need to go through manual review and instead can just get auto approved automatically. And then for those that go through manual review, the SLA, so the time it takes for that review to happen, needs to be as fast as possible. Right. So that has nothing to do with acquisition. That has nothing to do with like Facebook ads. That has nothing to do with email marketing. But that is a huge growth lever.
Yeah, that's
right.
100%. And that's a very unique example, because my brain does not think about growth of like operational efficiency within the lead flow or within the conversion rate or whatever it may be. Like my interpretation of growth, as similar to you, is like, I just want to see top line grow. Like I want to see, if I'm doing $1 million this year, I want to take it to $2 million next year. That's my definition of growth. And since I come from the B2B world, like once you go a step below that in the world of growth, it's like sales is part of growth, marketing is part of growth, account management is part of growth. Like everything sort of touches growth. And I think growth, I don't know if it's because it's this sort of vague term. There's like growth hackers and the growth marketers and there's growth paid ad specialists. It's like everyone can just stick their name on growth and they sound a little bit sexier, but I think it's such bullshit, because it's I don't know if it's vague on purpose, but you just gave a perfect example of like a growth strategy that I've never even thought of or contemplated. But does that make it harder for you as a growth specialist or a growth consultant or fractional growth, like a chief growth officer, like because there's so many applications for it? Is everyone looking for something different, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like growth, right? Like, I mean, Facebook ads are great. I can do it. Paid search, wonderful, whatever. Email marketing, awesome, right? Landing page CRO, great. But the thing I like about growth is you can kind of look at the whole thing. So, I come into a business and you just like look at everything, right? So, okay, give me just all the data. Give me just the whole picture on like what is happening, where you are now, where you're trying to go, right? And then we kind of build like a stack rank of, okay, here are all the opportunities. And those opportunities could look like, hey, like stop spending money on Facebook, pour more money into search, because that's working really well. Optimize your landing page. And then maybe there's operational stuff, right? Maybe it is like, hey, actually, you need to increase the time or decrease the time it takes to review applications, or your life cycle isn't really working well mid funnel, right? Like that's what I like about it, is because you can kind of look at everything, and you're not just like pigeonholed into one specific thing. You get to look at the whole picture and then just figure out what are the levers within that business that will get to your goal of basically going from 1 million to 2 million. So enough. Yes, it makes it harder in the sense that it's more vague, right? Like it's a bit more like, it's not a one size fits all. It's not just like, hey, like you're an ecom business doing $10 million top line, and you need UGC creative, and then, okay, I'm just gonna, like, my thing is UGC creative for $10 million like D2C businesses. It's not easy. Obviously everything is hard, but that's more of a straightforward, like you just like rinse and repeat a little bit, right? Versus true growth. Yes, there are playbooks. Yes, there are best practices, but ultimately you have to look at the whole business. And it's kind of like a way of thinking, and it's a way of operating. To kind of like hit those objectives.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess that shifts my mindset of more like a management consultant or an operations specialist instead of a marketing specialist. Like when I think of growth, I think it's a marketing specialist who, as you said, like either knows UGC or knows paid ads or knows Meta really well and knows how to SEO or whatever it may be, and knows how to optimize those channels. Because again, going back to the top line, like that's going to affect top line. But I guess what you're saying is more of a managerial consultant coming in and just like trying to uncover those nuggets of gold or nuggets of coal and turning them into gold. It's probably a better analogy.
100%, right? And even in that case, like, growth folks generally have kind of like, a deep T or sort of a spike, right? That they're really good at. So some folks are more PLG driven, right? Like, product led growth. So they're really, really good at like growing through, the product experience, right? Whether, or through like paid ads or through like SEO or through, pricing, whatever it is, right? Like everyone has kind of like their thing, but then the true like growth folks, yes, they have their thing, but they can look at the whole picture, right? Even if you're really good at like paid acquisition, you understand that like growth does not end at the ad click, right? So you're still looking at everything, but maybe you can execute really well yourself on the paid ads piece, and then you kind of work with the team or with other folks to provide recommendations on the other side. Or if you're a PLG person, you focus really heavily there. That's the stuff that you collaborate really closely with like the PMs and everyone else. And then you can kind of like advise on like the paid piece, right? But you kind of, the key is seeing the full picture end to end.
Yeah, it has to be because everything's interconnected. It's not just about top
Exactly.
line leads in the door. It's about how the sales team approaches them, how quickly are they getting in touch with the leads and converting them and stuff like that. So my
Exactly.
follow up question to this may not be able to answer, but if I'm going back as a business owner and I want to do my own growth audit, like what are the, I don't know, top three metrics or top three things that are most commonly not optimized, let's call it. If I was going to go back, look into my business to be like, okay, I want to improve growth. What should I look for?
Yeah, I think I think a disproportionate amount of time is spent at the top of the funnel, right? Like optimizing Facebook ads, optimizing paid search, creating content, organic social, and that's very important. That's all very important.
Yeah.
But I think it gets a disproportionate amount of attention. Um, if I were to kind of like do like a growth audit or advise someone to do a growth audit, I would look at the like everything like post click. They come to the landing page and then all of those other pieces, right? Like if you're I don't know, like a landscaping business or whatever, and your objective is to get more leads, right? To get more people to like fill out a form to contact you or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What I would look at, for example, is like, yes, we'll look at the top of funnel stuff afterwards, but like the landing page, the number of people who come to the landing page, and then what percentage of those people like click the get
Yeah.
started or call now or whatever, and then even from there, it's like what percentage of those people actually fill out that form, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, what percentage of those people are actually qualified that fit your
Yeah.
ICP, that are actually like high intent, right? Like that, like you fix that stuff,
Yeah.
the top of funnel kind of takes care of itself, right? And this, as long as it's set up like generally correct, you make those changes, like your costs are going to go down, your volume's going to go up, right?
Yeah.
Because you're affecting stuff in that post like click experience.
Yeah.
So that's always where I would like where I'd start and where I'd spend more of the time.
Too funny. Because you're right. It definitely disproportionate amount of attention. I don't know why, but I guess top of funnel is advertised the most. Like people always talk about like ad distribution, Meta and whatever, TikTok and spending money there. Or maybe it's just the easiest. It's like, hey, let's put more money here and more money there. And it's just like, you just throw the money at the problem and hopefully it solves itself. Where once you have to go internally, it's like, oh shit, I have to fire my sales team or like I have to redo my website or something like that. It's a little bit more painful to make those adjustments.
Yeah. And it's a bit more like vague. It's a bit more like trial and error, right? Like it's a bit more, it's a bit more vague, right? It's not as clear cut. But that's a lot of the time where you'll actually see the most gains, right? Yeah. Or in our sort of landscaping example again, right, is like you're getting folks that are coming in the door, and then you bring it, they pay for the service once. But like, what's your retention strategy? Do you have like emails going out being like, hey, it's like spring, get your lawn cut or whatever, right? Like you've already paid to bring these people in. So like keep them active, keep them alive, right? Yeah. Like increase your LTV, right? Yeah. Another thing that's very overlooked, right? It's just like, let's just bring in more people. But it's like, well, you already have people.
Yeah.
Let's try and reactivate those people. Let's try to increase that LTV. Let's cross-sell them, right? Like, so that's a whole other area that, again, is overlooked.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just talking, you were talking about the whatever, like a seasonal or services business or something. I had a client of mine who's in the landscaping business and whatever, we were helping them hire someone on the finance side. And he saw my background. And he's like, hey, like, I don't know, you guys got in touch with me. It seems like you run a good sales process. Like if you were running my business, like how would you think about sales? And I don't know anything about landscaping. I don't know anything about like local services businesses, but I just said, like, I asked him a question back. I said, like, how does seasonality affect your business? And he was just like, oh, it's like the most important thing because like when the weather's good or the weather's bad, like we have to provide different services. We have to do that. And he's like, do you do any like marketing or do you reach out to clients when something happens or like there's a big rainstorm or whatever, there's big like drought at one point in time? He's like, no, we just like wait for clients to come. And I'm like, well, that's where I would start. Is like,
there you go.
Map out the like annual calendar of like when the weather changes or when like the season starts, or if you're doing, I think one of his businesses was like Christmas lights. I'm like, do you reach out to your clients like 2 months before Christmas saying like, hey, can we help you do your Christmas lights this year? He's like, no, we don't do any of that. I'm like, well, that's where I would start. Like, don't focus. And to your point, what you just brought up is like, he was thinking, when he asked me the question, he wanted to talk about getting new clients. And there's so much you can do with your existing clients. And it's something I'm truthfully trying to crack the code of my own business, which I don't know if you've done this before, but I'd love to pick your brain on this because for my business, like 50% of our clients come through like network or referrals and stuff like that. So 30% come from outbound, like cold outbound, and then 20% through paid ads and SEO and stuff like that. This year, I'm trying to like crack the code on the referral side of the business, which I see as the biggest lever in terms of growth. But I haven't found like software that makes it really easy. I haven't figured out like a system or a process to go and approach my clients and say, hey, you're happy with X service back in November. Like, I would love an introduction to your network, or do you know anyone else who's looking to hire, which is a very vague ask. But it also seems, I don't know if it seems greedy, but it doesn't seem very genuine. Like, I don't know if you have a growth mechanism or companies you've worked with have seen successful referral programs that feel nice. Like, I don't want to just ask people for things. Like, that doesn't feel nice. What's your take on referrals, or like any programs that you think work really well, or strategies?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is mostly on the B2C side, and in that way, it's pretty transactional, right? Where it's like, I mean, this is a very classic, like Uber, like give 10, get 10. Everyone does this now, right? There are other versions of that where it's like skip the wait list, right? Get to the top of the list, move up in line, right? Like that, those kind of like mechanisms when you invite friends. On the like B2B side, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, and other folks I know kind of in the service business. Honestly, it is just asking.
Yeah.
It is just asking, especially when you wrap up. I think that the timing is everything, right? So it's when you wrap up the engagement, once they've had, you've had the successful placement, and they're happy with their, with their hire.
Yeah.
The final thing after everything's all done is like, hey, do you know, three other people who could benefit from my service, or are there three people that come to mind that do you think I should talk to?
Yeah.
Right. The way you phrase it, you can kind of phrase it in different ways, but I always found it's being specific with the number. It's like, do you know three people, or one person, or two people, whatever it is. And then you can kind of say it as like, that I should meet, that I should talk to, that, something like that.
Yeah.
Right at the end, when they're still like, they have their like aha moment, they have their sort of like their warm fuzzy feeling of like it was successful, and then you go in for the ask. More often than not, like it'll work.
Yeah.
Actually, this actually just reminded me of one of the best referral programs I've actually ever seen. Othership did it incredibly. Now they've sort of operationalized it, but at the beginning it was amazing how they did it.
What was it?
So the founder, obviously not the founder, but the founder reached out, plain text email, be like, hey Simon, blah blah blah, thanks for being part of the community. We're looking to continue to build a community with like-minded people, blah, 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 blah. Can you send me the email addresses of three of your friends who you think would be a good fit, and we'll send them free passes it was for the Yorkville opening.
Yeah.
So we'll send them three, and they did the same thing for New York, three free passes. Right. So it wasn't salesy. They were giving it made me feel valued as a community member. The intent was not to sell. The intent was to build the community in a intentional way, right? It's like, oh, you're great, so you probably know great people. Yeah. And then they were giving something away to those people, to my friends, right? Yeah. So I looked like the hero, and then they would CC me on the email, right? Really? So I looked like the hero because I was giving my friends this free thing. Yeah. Right. But then they were also building,
and it was just a plain text email, no fancy marketing, no branding, no nothing, just a text email.
Correct. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
So something like that could be interesting if you're willing to give some sort of discount or some sort of just special offer, but it's not public, right? It's within the email. It's like, hey, send me. And it was very easy for me to do because all I had to do was send him 3 email addresses. Yeah. I didn't have to fill anything out. I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, I like the idea of lo-fi. I think all of our inboxes and whatever are so filled with spam and emails that look like spam. And they come in templated, they're from MailChimp or they're from HubSpot or whatever. And I don't know. I unsubscribe from them immediately. But I think the idea of a simple text email, and as you said, a simple ask is great.
It tends to work really well.
Even from my side of it, the businesses that do this best tend to be e-commerce brands, B2C brands, because that's the lifeblood of their business. They have to do it because most of the time they're lower ticket items. And they have to, if they're spending money to get someone in the door, they have to make them buy multiple times, or they have to use them to get to other people. But I think that's an interesting way to approach it. And then you can obviously test it out manually and then systemize it eventually.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And this plain text email from the founder sort of like strategy actually works quite well in e-commerce as part of like it works well in a few different ways. Number one is as part of like a welcome series. You know, the final email in a welcome series is sort of like a message from the founder talking about the brand story and the mission, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
as just sort of like a call it like brand indoctrination, right? Get people to really connect with the person behind the brand and the mission. And then the
Yeah.
other place it works really well is at the abandoned checkout as like a last ditch effort on the offer, right? So you know it's usually have like get 10% off, your offer's expiring, blah blah blah. You hit them with like a founder email of like, hey Simon, just reaching out. You know, thank you so much for checking out whatever brand. Um, we're really excited that you're here. Just wanted to check in and see if you had any questions about XYZ. You know, and just to let you know, like you do have this offer, right? You know,
Yeah.
10% off. It expires soon. If you have any questions, just reply to this email. Someone will be, you know, myself or someone from the team will be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again. Something like that. That
Yeah.
works really well.
Yeah. That's super interesting. Yeah.
The
I
amount
like
of people who reply to that email is insane. It's
really.
actually insane. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
People genuinely believe that it is the founder of the company
Yeah.
personally reaching out to them, and they will reply with like, especially if you ask a question, like at the welcome series, for example, for brands that I worked with one company where we were just launching in market. So that final email in the welcome series from the founder, the ask was basically like, why did you like sign up? Like, like how did like why are you interested?
Who the hell are you, and why are you buying my
Yeah.
product?
Yeah, like why did you buy or not buy? Like why just to collect information. And the amount of
Yeah.
people that reply to that email and be like, yeah, you know, like I just my other thing, like, and they just tell us
Yeah.
why they were interested, and it was a great intel.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, the little founder touch, and I like the lo-fi. Like it's not you're not
That's the key.
dressing it up. You're just doing super casual and short, and
That's the key.
simple. Yeah, it's interesting. This reminds me of it was amazing growth strategy or email marketing strategy that I saw someone do. It was you know Sam Parris, you know the Hustle, the newsletter. So it was really interesting, a little dicey and shady moves, but it obviously worked for them very well. So the Hustle is like an email newsletter, and they had this paid newsletter called Trends.
Yep.
And it was essentially like deep dives into specific industries or whatever. And they had like a research team, and they would do these deep dives, but you had to pay for it. I don't know what it was, $50 a month, $100 a year. I don't know what the pricing was, but they ran a Black Friday email campaign where they structured the email that it looked like Sam was writing an email about the discount to Black Friday to an employee internally, but accidentally BCC'd the entire mailing list. And it was like, hey, like, let's get ready for Black Friday next week. Like, I think we should offer 80% off, but like, do you think that's a good idea? They can click this link to get access to it. And it looked like an internal, it was like from Sam to an employee at the Hustle. And then in the BCC column, I guess they included the entire mailing list. So everyone who was a subscriber for the Hustle who potentially would want to buy the Trends saw this internal email and thought they were part of some exclusive offer they could take advantage of, and created some urgency. And then I think the next day or 2 days later, he emailed the exact same group saying, hey, looks like we made a mistake. We sent out an offer internally that you guys saw, whatever it was. You know what? We're going to honor it for the next 24 hours. If you want to take advantage of it, like click here and take the link, and it's going to be done after that. And I think it touches points on a couple things. It's like, one, you mentioned that othership idea of a community. Like this gave you like exclusive access and insider look. The like lo-fi email to email within a company that you mentioned, the founder touch. And then I think the really important side of his is like, he sort of showed this exclusivity, but also he put a timestamp on it of like, hey, we made a mistake, but we will honor it for the next 24 hours. If you want to buy it, like click here. And I'm sure it took off like wildfire, but it was just
without a doubt.
It was just so creative to have that strategy and approach. And I'm sure there's ways you can do this that is really like dirty and shady, but like this is like a fun way to do it and provide value to your audience.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think he pioneered that, and then I think he also pioneered the Facebook ad like newsletter thing that everyone does now. But he was one of the first people to do to do like that. There's a specific sort of like format that he came up with that now everyone does. But even for Black Friday, I don't know if people still do it, but it's kind of played out now. But for a few years, everyone was doing this,
Yeah.
right? It was like draft, like the subject line be like draft Black Friday offer, and it was like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I mean, it works.
I
It
was
does
gonna
work.
say if it ain't broke, then there's no reason to try
Yeah,
to fix it.
yeah,
Like just keep on going
yeah,
with it. And it's the same thing. I don't know if you see this as well, but in what I see, and I'm a heavy LinkedIn user, is
yeah,
like the idea of lead magnets. And for anyone who's listening, like the whole idea of a lead magnet is like you create some sort of piece of content or giveaway or whatever, some sort of value that you can give to your client that's usually worth something, but you just give it away for free. And that's part of your ad campaign. So maybe it'll be like I don't know, a playbook, or it'll be like a template to an Excel sheet to run your
yeah,
P&L. I don't know, something like that. And literally the ad won't even be about your business. It'll just be about this PDF or this book or this Excel sheet. And I'll say, okay, if you're interested in getting the P&L statement, and maybe here's a perfect example. You're an accounting firm or bookkeeping company. You're running an ad campaign saying, hey, you get free access to your SMB P&L statement templates. You
yeah,
provide like a gatekept, password protected Excel sheet. And once they enter in their email address, which is therefore you getting a lead, they get access to this SMB P&L spreadsheet. And I see them all the time. I've not run it for my own business. I've always contemplated with it. But if everyone's running it, it's got to be successful is my thought process. Like, I don't know what your experience has been with running lead magnets or what your take is on that side of growth or advertising strategies.
yeah. I haven't done a ton of it just because it is more of a B2B strategy.
Yeah.
But I have seen it work really well. There's two examples that come to mind of really, really strong versions of this. And it's the content driven, right? So, and these aren't ads. These are like organic LinkedIn posts and like, classic like founder brand, basically what you're doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
the founder brand, LinkedIn content, that kind of stuff. There's two that come to mind. Number one, again, Sam Parr and Hampton, where they put out these like super interesting reports, right, on like state of e-commerce, or they'll do where high net worth people like putting their money, right, like
Yeah. I
whatever.
saw that one.
There's really interesting, very like actionable, tangible, proprietary data, right? Because it's Hampton data, so it's all first party data that you can't really access anywhere else. They put it into a nice little report, and it's very simple. They just like they like Sam will like post a quick thing on LinkedIn explaining what it is, some of the key findings, and then like click here to check out the full report.
Yeah.
Goes to a landing page, HubSpot form fill, and then poof, and now I'm
Yeah.
on that Hampton mailing list. Like I get emails
Yeah.
from them all the time.
I know.
I don't even
The
qualify.
craziest part of the whole thing, as you said the magic word organic, is the CAC is
It's
zero.
100% organic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it works because Sam has an audience, right? But I think the same thing can work, in your case. Right. And another more relevant example to you is there's a guy who runs a company called The Starters. I don't know if you've heard of them,
Yeah.
J something. Anyway, he runs a company called The Starters. It's a freelance marketplace for vetted e-commerce talent.
Okay.
And he puts out like every year a few different reports, but the big one is sort of like it's like the state of freelancing or something like that. And basically the point is that it has like here like the going rates for all the different, like this is how much you should
Yeah.
be paying, because his ICP is e-commerce brands, right? So
Yeah.
he puts out this thing and it's like this is how much you should be paying for all these different roles.
Yeah. Like
Um,
support reps or graphic designers or
yeah.
Shopify
Like
managers or whatever it may be.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he has the data, right? Because it's all from his platform. So he
Yeah.
pulls it all. He's like the average salaries, whatever. Here it all is, and then it's the same thing, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a
100%.
click through,
No,
lead form,
it's a
form
great
fill,
idea.
done.
I think my issue is like, first of all, one, it takes some time to do because you actually have to build the asset.
Totally. Yes, it
But
does. Yeah.
you want the asset to actually be valuable. Like the amount of people, maybe I just have a bad taste in my mouth with my LinkedIn feed is toxic, but the amount of people who are like LinkedIn gurus or whatever, and they're like, hey, comment playbook if you want this playbook. And I participate in a lot of them just because I want to see the workflow and I want to see the
Yeah.
content produced. And they send over this PDF and it's like, this is
It's
how
garbage.
you get 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. Post every day, comment every
it's
day,
garbage.
connect with other people. I'm like, this is such bullshit. But then you see the problem is their posts get 20,000 comments and they get all these followers or whatever. And it's like, it's like a pyramid
But
scheme type situation. So
I
think
totally
that's my
agree.
difference is like, you really need to structure something super valuable and super specific to your audience to provide value. And I think if you do that right, you get 5 leads, it's better than getting 1,000 junk leads that aren't going to be relevant.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And that's the thing is like, with Hampton or with the starters, right? I think that's what they've nailed. And you're exactly right, is like it's super relevant and it's high quality and it's valuable, right? Because like
Yeah,
if you put out garbage, okay, fine, it'll work once, but like you're never gonna sign up again. You're never gonna go through it again, right? You
yeah,
lose the credibility, right? Versus with these, like, with the Hampton reports, or like I sign up for every one. At least that's
yeah,
interesting to me, right? That's
yeah,
relevant to me, right? But like I've signed up for like three of them. Like I'm very aware of like Hampton. I listen to the MoneyWise podcast. Like I'm in their world. I don't even qualify, right?
yeah,
But like I'm ICP adjacent, right? Like I run a
yeah,
business, but not enough
yeah,
money,
yeah.
right? Like, but it works, right?
100%. Well, you have the brand recognition, and hey, if you
Yeah,
qualify, you're ever interested, or whatever, someone talks to you about it, you're gonna have positive
they'll be
things to say about it.
exactly. And if I ever qualify, like they'll be my first call, right?
Yeah,
Like, so that's the thing is like, and the starters does a very very similar thing, right? So I think the whole like LinkedIn sort of like comment, like, connect, like bullshit, like whatever, it works because it drives virality and like you'll get the followers. But like, I mean, personally for me, I think it's just like spammy and like
yeah,
clickbaiting, just like a bad look.
yeah,
Even if it works, it's just like I will never do it personally.
yeah,
And then B, it's like, yes, you get volume, but like what is the quality? And maybe like if you're selling something that is like super mass market, then great, maybe that works, right? But for like Hampton or for the starters, the ICPs are pretty narrow, they're pretty specific,
yeah,
right? So you're better off actually creating something of quality that is highly relevant and isn't this like clickbaity bullshit. And then you're actually collecting real leads, right? And you do want the email address. Like LinkedIn is great,
yeah,
but like you want the email address, right? So you're getting quality leads that are actually high intent, that fit your ICP, where you actually have a direct relationship with them, right?
yeah,
Like that feels
100%.
like a better outcome. Even if it's like
Yeah,
10% of the volume, the quality is probably 10x.
yeah, 100%. I'll have to check out the starter because I think that's the issue is that there's
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
everyone sees these strategies and they just do them, but only like 1% of them do them well, and
Yeah.
99% of them do them like shit. And I think at least it gives me bad taste, and it's like, wow, this seems like just a scam way to generate leads and likes.
Yeah.
But if you
I
find
think I
people
think
doing
this
it right,
is
you have to study them really well.
I think there's an opportunity like definitely for you in terms of I do think that the world of offshore hiring is like it's becoming more of a thing, but it's still there's a lot of it's still a bit of a black box. A lot of people don't
Yeah,
really get it, right? So I think there's an opportunity for you around like whether it is like salary stuff, whether it is I don't know, profiles. Like there's something you can do. You can put together some sort of content piece that is like really maybe it's like a step by step guide, right? Maybe it's
yeah,
like Chris Hutchins did this actually. He partnered with Oceans, and he did a webinar with some other guy, and the whole thing was like, put in your email address, and you get like this is my like step by step guide on how to delegate. And it was
yeah,
actually really good. I signed up, and
yeah.
I hadn't heard of Oceans. Now I know about Oceans, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it worked.
I was gonna say delegation is like the number one. I've seen a million delegation webinars. Is like all these people
Yeah,
who are in the offshoring spaces, like they run delegation webinars, and
yeah.
who
But
knows
what
how
like
many
what
people attend.
version?
But
Like what is that version for you, right? It doesn't have to be a webinar. It can be like a guide or a doc or something of
yeah,
like maybe it's not delegation for EAs. Maybe it's like how to onboard, a global team,
yeah,
whatever, right?
100%.
Something that's like highly relevant, that's like tactical, actionable, not overtly salesy, but the goal is to get email addresses and the goal is to basically build
Yeah,
your brand recognition among your ICP.
yeah. Do I have
So
to
I think
pay?
that
Do
can
I
be
have to
really
pay you? Do I
interesting.
have to pay you for these ideas?
First
Yeah,
hour
I'll
is
put,
free. First hour is free.
exactly. There you go. I'll put you on retainer. No,
Yeah.
that's super interesting. I guess so. I'm pivoting from that to like these ideas to like actual execution. But I think it's a great idea. I'm going to run with that and come up with either like a valuable lead magnet, or like some sort of webinar type content. From your side of it, like, are there any like what are the banger campaigns that you've run or been involved in? Like what are the 10xers? Like who are the superstars? Like I don't want to hear about a 1x or a negative CAC campaign. Like what from your side of what you've seen, like can you pull the curtain back on a couple campaigns that have just been like blown you out of the water?
That's a good question. Let me think. I mean, a lot of the stuff, I mean, I guess I can speak to sort of like two. A lot of the stuff that I do is not necessarily like the big banger campaign. It's sort of the unsexy optimizations,
Yeah.
dialing things in, just making things work.
Yeah.
But I can speak to maybe one like kind of like banger campaign that went out and did really well. Um, so it was with Float, one of their out of home campaigns that we worked on. I can't take full credit for that. Like I did the media planning and the media buying on that, but I worked very closely with the team on the creative and that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a group effort. But yeah, it really crushed. It did. It really crushed. Everybody like so Float obviously it's financial management like software or whatever, and so the target is finance people, founders, that kind of thing, SMBs, and just the chatter that we saw on LinkedIn, like everybody was seeing it, everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
So it
So,
did a
so what
ton
was the actual campaign? Like, what did you
out of
guys
home.
run?
Out of
Out of
home. So
home.
I did the out of home portion. I think there was a bit of like TV as well. But I did the out of home portion. We ran it in Calgary, Vancouver, and Toronto.
Yeah.
We were at Billy Bishop. We were on streetcars. We were on boards across the city.
Yeah.
And we saw, yeah, just the chatter on LinkedIn was crazy.
Yeah.
The
Well,
word of mouth, like
I guess from out of home, you were saying like this is just old school, like print
old school
billboards and
billboards.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, I always think it's such an interesting idea. Like you see this with like naming rights of basketball stadiums and
Yep.
shit. It's like, how do you quantify billboards, bus stops? Like, I don't know how do you quantify the value of that? And also, is that the whole category? Is out of home is just that entire category of like print and ads and bus stops and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's anything that's really like in the real world, right? So
Yeah.
bus shelters, murals, posters, transit, even like activations,
Yeah.
right? Like anything kind of in the real physical world, video trucks, like anything like that
And
is it all fits.
how do you track the ROI on a campaign like that? Because it's so funny now. Obviously, it's everything. Half the world's trackable because it's all digital, and half the world
Yeah.
in real life is untrackable. And it seems obvious from a marketing perspective. It's like I'm just going to spend on the trackable stuff because at least I have visibility. On the untrackable stuff, I'm just guessing. But is
Yeah.
there a way to track it, or how do you think?
Yep.
How did Float and you think about it?
Yeah, there are ways of measuring it. So in the case of Float, I didn't have like full viz into the data piece, but what we saw at a high level was like tons of LinkedIn chatter, tons of people kind of like mentioning like, hey, like I saw it, whatever, which is always a good sign. And then they actually closed, I don't know anymore, but at the time, their biggest demo ever came in and cited the board as the reason
Really?
for it, the campaign. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like anecdotal, right? It's all anecdotal. But
Yeah.
taking a step back and more on the B2C side when it comes to like out of home or just traditional channels in general, whether it's direct mail, out of home, TV, radio, whatever it is, you can measure it basically using a number of different methods. It's usually a combination of things. So it's like a checkout survey. How did you hear about us? You can do like a pre-post. So if you run kind of like, let's say you run in Toronto, you can look, okay, what's the 4-week average before the campaign runs? What's the 4-week
Yeah.
average during the campaign? And then what's the afterwards? And then that difference, all else being equal, that incremental is essentially attributable to the campaign,
Yeah.
right? In like as long as you're running a constrained geo, so you're just looking at lift, and then you can look at like you can look at your analytics. You can look at like, okay, is there an increase in direct traffic, increase in organic search traffic, increase in like paid branded search? Does your Facebook become more efficient in the geo that you're running in during the campaign period? And then you can just use like an MMM as well, like a media mix modeling tool as well, to like plug in all the
Yeah.
inputs and then basically have this model that spits out like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
But you can do it, like you
Pretty
can get pretty
crazy.
directional with it and get a pretty good
Yeah.
sense of
Are most
what happened.
businesses like overlooking in real life ads and stuff like that just because it's deemed to be old school? Because I guess to your point, it like seems to be still relevant and delivers. Do people even think about it? How much does it cost to sponsor a bus? Like I have no clue what this world looks like. Like how do you think businesses are thinking about it?
Yeah, I think there's more like taking a step back in terms of sort of the macro trends that I'm seeing. And maybe this is like talking my own book a little bit, but but I do think it's real. Like I think there is and this trend has been going on for, I would say, at least 2 years now. Channel diversification, right? And what that looks like is it's not just out of home or TV or radio, or whatever, right? It's thinking beyond Facebook and Google. Those channels have become so saturated. They're still honestly like the best place to start. But before, what you could do is like, back in the open care days or like, top hat days, whatever, like you could just blast money forever, basically, and like build a whole business off, right? If you think of like Hubble Contacts or Lumen Skin or like these like OG Facebook brands, Wish, right? Like the
Yeah.
OG Facebook brands, they just built their entire business on top of Facebook. And like you have similar ones on Google, right? With like booking.com and all the OTAs, they just built entirely off of paid search. Um, that today is a lot harder to do, right? So you can still scale on Facebook and search. I mean, you can scale to 100K, 200K a month, depending on like what you're looking at, right? But the ceiling on that without other support is a lot lower than it used to be.
Yeah.
So the early stage companies, it still probably makes sense to like, as long as you have some money and depending on your sort of like your LTV, right? It is expensive, yeah. But depending on your LTV and like your AOV and whatever, like it's still probably a good place to start. But your ceiling, right, is a lot lower than it used to be in terms of scale.
Yeah.
So now a lot of companies, as it kind of hits scale, are much more open to channel diversification, right?
Yeah.
A lot more companies than before, especially B2B SaaS. B2B SaaS was earlier to out of home and TV, and now consumers sort of like figuring this out as well. A lot of folks are looking at these other channels now. They're looking at TV, they're looking at direct mail, they're looking at out of home, they're looking at I'm working with clients on direct mail, I've working with a bunch of clients on out of home, I've done some work in TV. And these are sort of like tech first, call them like Facebook brands, right? Yeah. That have like kind of tapped out, right? Even like Felix, for example, right? Like Felix scaled like crazy on paid social. That was like the majority of their story for the first like number of years that they were in business. And then they kind of like took that step into radio. They took that step. I worked on one of their first out of home campaigns, like took that step into out of home. Now they're like always on out of home. I don't know about radio, but they did some radio stuff. Right? A lot of brands are recognizing that like there is this ceiling on these digital channels now. So you're sort of diversifying away from that.
100%. Oh, it's competitive. There's no way around it. It's crazy. Like there's all these stages and trends in marketing and growth. And the one that I'm most interested in and something I focus on is like, as you said, channel diversification, but I actually think channel ownership is even more important than ever. It's only become more and more important. Like these people who are growing either founder brands or personal brands or company brands on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be. And it's pretty crazy to see this. Like, I don't know about you, but at night I'm like on the couch scrolling through TikTok and there's some of these brands that like, I have no like real interest in the brands or I don't even know how I followed them, but I know everything about the company and I know everything about the founder. I have this like personal connection to them. One of them that comes to mind, which is super interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this company in New York. It's a clothing company or it's sort of like a lifestyle company. It's called Minted New York. Have you ever heard of them? So it's a crazy story. I don't really know the origin behind it. Like he looks like a corporate guy. He was probably working a corporate job. COVID happened. He wanted to do his own thing, but he's like this very like old school, old money style guy who's obsessed with working out, running, and like dressing like an old rich person. And he's in New York, and his name's Sean, and him and his brother run this company called Minted New York. And they started out with like workout gears and now they have a deal with Saucony, like the running shoe brand. They have their own collab with it. And pretty much their entire marketing channel has been done through his personal TikTok, where he would go in New York and he'd video himself on like a city bike going to like a materials guy in New York and picking out the fabric for their upcoming drop. And then he would run drops, which was just like a one page on Shopify to be open for 24 hours. And he would just post it on TikTok, sell out, and then do it all over again. And now this guy's like getting insane partnerships and growing really quickly. I don't know like how the business is behind the scenes, but the fact that he can own his own distribution channel and doesn't have to think about the Facebook algorithm or the TikTok algorithm and spending money on these channels and thinking about SEO versus Nike, like best of luck to you if you're going to fight Nike on SEO. So channel ownership is something I'm super 100% interested in. And I just don't foresee a world where it becomes less important in the future. It's just going to become more and more important as the world continues to evolve.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's the other sort of like trend is the channel diversification piece is the like at scale sort of like piece, right? Like, but at the early stages, you're exactly right. It's like choose a channel, whether it's like paid social, whether it's paid search, whether it's organic social, whether it's like, organic LinkedIn, whatever it is, it's like choosing one channel and just like owning it and crushing it until you kind of like tap out, right? Like this guy, for example, like I'm sure like that's working and that's sick and it'll continue working, but there will come a point where it's like, okay, what's the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is like billboards, right? Maybe it is sort of like, maybe it's like an event. Maybe it's like a
Yeah.
community thing, right? Where you bring all of the followers together IRL and do an event, right? Like it doesn't necessarily need to be like a paid thing, right? But like, what's the next iteration of this, right? Like that is sort of like the always on, but then
Yeah.
what's the next thing? Like what's the next step function in
Well,
growth?
yeah, you just hit the nail right on the head. Is like the problem is if you stop creating content, you stop publishing, then
You're done.
you're done, and
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope, but it's a crazy treadmill. So as your point, like you have to have this stuff running in the background and paying for it, but it's really cool to see these brands just like pop out of nowhere. I don't know in Toronto if you've seen this. Have you seen these like during the day coffee parties?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like rave at a cafe or whatever.
Do you see that? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like some
Yeah.
guys, they look like nightclub guys, and they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna host an event during the day, no booze, only coffee. And now there's like 1,000-person lines outside trying to get into these events. And they, same thing, they just like probably hired a videographer, one of their buddies was a videographer, showed up to the first event, took sick pictures and videos, everyone reposted it online, and now they have this like day party coffee brand. Like it's
Yeah.
really cool that if you do cool things and you do it the right way or whatever, and you know how to distribute it, like people will find out about you if you're good. If you're not good, then no one will find out about you. So you have to find the right way to do it. But yeah, there's so many different evolutions of it. And we were talking about sort of growth hacks. There was a couple that came to mind. One that where we first met at Top Hat, it was pretty crazy because in the early days, like I was whatever, when Top Hat was 60 people, 70 people, like there was only 10 sales reps. And now God knows how many people they are in a big company. But when I started at Top Hat, like we would literally just like upload a list of professors, and we used a plugin into Chrome called Mail Merge, and it was just like a mass mailing system. And we would load up 100 professors, 500 professors, whatever. We would write out a template saying, "Hey, we're coming to campus. We would love to meet with you." Click send. Go get a coffee and come back, and our inbox was filled with meetings. And then we would book a flight to go meet them in person. And that was like our first sort of growth tactic, get out there. And then I remember it very well when Top Hat started to get bigger and we moved into a nicer office. Our next growth tactic from a marketing side was like we were just giving everybody iPads.
Yep.
And it was like, hey, if you teach, like our qualification at the time was if you teach over, which is so funny to think about it now, over 100 students, and you sign up for Top Hat for a semester, we'll give you a free iPad.
Yeah.
And
the clever thing with that,
sweet offer.
The clever thing with that was like the sequence, right? Because it was, you don't get the iPad right away. You sign up. I can't remember exactly what had to happen, and then you'd get the case. You get the case with a handwritten note being like complete. You know, maybe it's a complete onboarding or upload your classes, whatever it was.
Yeah.
To get the, so it wasn't just get the iPad. It was like that you got an empty case.
Yeah. It was
with a
tease.
prompt to finish the process to get the actual iPad, which I thought was the real. That was the real sort of like killer thing. And that's why it works so well.
And I don't know if you remember this, is like the threshold used to be 100 and above for an iPad. And then it was like below 100, you would qualify for like a BlackBerry tablet or some piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one wanted that.
Or something.
We didn't make any sales for classes under 100 students. It was like everyone wanted the iPads. Yeah. Which is so funny. I remember at one point, like for professors at Churn, they wanted to put together like a repo team that would go back and repossess the iPads. I'm like, that's just never going to work. But it worked because it was a high ticket item. Like for 100 students, it would be like, I don't know, like $2,000 or something, or more than that. It would be $2,000
per semester.
More $2,000 per semester in terms of revenue. So to spend a few $100 on an iPad was well worth it. But
and you get that professor signed up, right? Like they got familiar with the platform, and then hopefully they like it. So then next 100%. Semester they force their students to do it, and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. No, it can work. Gifting can definitely work. I think it's a slippery slope. But it worked really well. And the other one I was going to say that came to mind is like when the company I was with before was Turnstile, we were acquired by Yelp, and I was with Yelp for 2 years or something like that. And one thing I realized is like these big Silicon Valley companies, a lot of them still don't know what they're doing, and everyone's still trying to figure it out. It wasn't anything crazy, but for our business, we were selling like Yelp reservations and a couple other like their software platforms for restaurants. And the most important logos were always the busiest restaurants because that's where all the consumers want to book and get all the reservations or whatever it may be. But those are also the hardest restaurants to get in touch with and book meetings with. So what we had at Yelp is we had like a Yelp top 100, and we would literally print out like certificates and put them into frames, and we would email the restaurants or call the restaurant and say, hey, like, I have your certificate here. You made the top Yelp 100. I'll come into the restaurant and deliver it for you. And we would show up to the restaurants with these plaques and these certificates and be like, hey, like, how's business? Like, we just launched this new feature in Yelp reservations. We'd love to show you what it looked like and just pitch them on the spot. And it was like really a creative way to get in the door. It was legitimate, but then you got to come in and try to go for the sale while they're there. But I think that sort of prestige piece works really well if you have the clout and the brand awareness. But you go to all these restaurants and they always have stickers on the wall of like TripAdvisor or Yelp or Google or Michelin star or whatever. It works.
Yeah, I mean, we did something similar way back in the day when I was at Rate Hub. It was an SEO play. It was basically like, and we had like physical plaques, whatever, but it's really an SEO play. So we'd go to like all of our partners, whatever, and be like, hey, like, American Express, like Platinum Card or whatever, or EQ Bank, like checking account, like you're the number one, checking account in Canada, or like based on the Rate Hub like rankings, and we'd give them a plaque, but then more importantly is we'd get them to put the badge on their website with a link back to Rate Hub. So you get this like super high quality link from this super high domain authority. It's like, how else do you get like, a link from Tangerine or from EQ Bank or from wherever? So that's how they would do it. To get these like super, super valuable links.
Yeah.
It works really well.
I use the Rate Hub mortgage calculator all the time.
There you go.
So it works on me. I'm not a customer, but I use the website all the time. No, there's some really good ideas and different strategies. And I guess sort of wrapping up and putting a bow on it, like if you maybe just like a parting piece to founders or VPs marketing or sales or whatever, maybe like just like one thing that you think people can go in action from the growth side of it. Is it just like take some time, look through the data? Is it like digest your channels right now? Is it update your spend? Like, what do you think is like the potentially most valuable thing that people go and try to put into their business to improve that top line number?
I think it's probably two things. If you're like an earlier stage business, the keyword is focus. I know a lot of...
I feel like you say that coming from experience working with a lot of seed and like Series A companies.
Yes. A lot of the times I come into some of these companies and they're doing like 17,000 channels. And the first thing is like, we're cutting all of these except for 2.
Yeah.
Because you look at the data and you're like, well, there's only 2 or 3 that are actually working. So let's take all of that money and all of those resources, the time, the energy, whatever, and just pour it into those 2 or 3 because those are working. Yeah. And we're not, and we haven't saturated it. We're not like fully maxed out. So like, let's max out, these channels first and optimize everything for those channels, get that working. Then we can think about other things. Yeah. So that'd be the first thing and be like, focus, figure out what the 1 to 3 channels are that are actually truly working for you and just double down there because you're probably not fully maxed on those channels. Yeah. Number 1. And number 2 would be, look at the full funnel, look at the full experience, figure out where those drop off points are because there's probably the funnel is probably like quite leaky. And there's probably a couple places where you can plug some of those holes, which will have an outsized impact on your top of funnel without you having to really do anything at the top of the funnel.
Yeah, fair enough. Those are our simple takeaways is focus. Don't chase every shiny red ball and audit your own funnel to make sure there's no leaks. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the insights and stories and definitely a few of these things I want to implement. Truthfully, like the referral idea and the content piece of getting out there with webinars or lead magnets or whatever. It's on the schedule, but maybe I'm too focused right now. I'm not trying to do too many things, so I'll add those to the agenda of different things that need to get done this quarter. But good catching up, Simon. I appreciate all the insights. And if anyone wants to shoot you a note or connect or whatever, where's the best place to connect with you?
Probably on LinkedIn, Simon Mills, and the website, georgestreetgrowth.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and good catching up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Okay. We'll speak soon.
All right. See ya.